You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. It's myself, Mooncey, and back once again, the three-time NBA champion, Mr. BJ Armstrong. BJ, what up, though? I know you boys in Detroit are
What?
feeling pretty good today.
Ooh, Mo, I'm getting Mo. This is the fan side that doesn't come out very often. Our Pistons,
Your Pistons,
we beat your Boston
my
Celtics.
Celtics. Yeah.
And Mo, do I say it, Mo? I don't want to say it, but you got to say it. We, we, we,
Eight
we-
straight,
yeah, we're here, Mo.
one
We're
game
here.
behind the four seed.
Yeah, Mo. We are here.
The first win against the Celtics in 13 games.
Mo, we are here.
The last time the Pistons beat the Celtics was February 16th, 2022. And it was a 1 point game. And Jeremy Grant led the Pistons in scoring. They started Corey Joseph at point guard on that game. That's how long ago it was. Shout out to the Pistons. They played a
Shout
great
out.
game. As a Celtics fan, I can't even be mad. The Pistons played hard.
No,
They were making shots. Malik Beasley came off the bench, dropped 26. Shout out to him. He's been ball like he's been playing really well for the Pistons this season. And do you know who I want to give a shout out to?
who's that?
Because he has been criticized a whole lot over the last 5+ years, especially by the Sixers fans. And we're going to talk about the Sixers in a minute. But Tobias Harris, the impact that Tobias has had on this team as a true professional, leading that
Mm.
locker room, bringing in his experience, and just being reliable. He's there. He's playing. He gave them 34 minutes last night, gave them 16 points, 9 rebounds, a steal and a couple blocks. Tobias Harris has been really good for the Detroit Pistons this season. So I want to shout out to Tobias Harris because he was getting killed by the Sixers fans. And I got a great segue lined up, BJ, but whatever else you want to say on the Pistons, you go ahead.
You have to give them credit, and let's talk about these players. Okay, let's talk about these players, and let's start at the top. Cade Cunningham. Okay, Cade has shown now that not only does he have the capability to lead a franchise, but he can lead a franchise as the best player at the point guard position. Very, very difficult to do. So let's give him credit. He came in, he had some injuries, he was the number one pick. They got that one right. Okay. And I love Evan Mobley, but Cade has shown now, okay, they got that right. Jalen Duren. They drafted this kid 1 year from the University of Memphis. He has settled in. They got that one right. Asur Thompson. Boy, did they ever get that one right. Okay. The Thompson twins. Wow. Okay. Isaiah Stewart, Jaden Ivey. Now, there's a common theme with all these players I just named. He's no longer with the organization, but he was the one who drafted all these players.
I think he's traded for Isaiah Stewart, but all the rest of them, yeah.
He drafted Isaiah. Okay, you trade with people during the draft night. He drafted him.
No, because he went to Houston, did he not? But he got traded on draft night from Portland to Houston, and then in November they traded him to the Pistons.
You do the deal on draft night, and then
Okay, okay,
the
okay.
trade, yeah, he gets consummated. All these players were drafted by Troy Weaver. Troy Weaver deserves credit for what this team has done, what they're currently doing, and where they're going to go. We must recognize what has happened because those are the facts. Unfortunately, whatever happened there where Troy is no longer with the organization. And then I also want to recognize JB Bickerstaff for what he has done this year. They're playing with a sense of of energy. Noted Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Mr. Beasley himself. Okay, yeah, some vets, some true professionals, and this is what happens. This has been one of those moments now where you're looking and you're going, Mo, this has to be one of the biggest turnarounds. Okay, basically the same group. You sprinkle in a veteran here or there, and this is what you get. And remember, Jaden Ivey, who was also under Troy Weaver's, he drafted him. He's not even playing right now. So, Bo, this has been very impressive. You have to give them credit. For the most part, they got the draft right. And now they've lived with those players, allowed them to play through their mistakes and all of their errors. And all of a sudden now you look at them and you're saying, wow, Bo, you're going like, they're probably a free agent away. Knowing Detroit, we probably want some guy who grew up in Detroit to come back home. That's probably
you heard
Detroit
yesterday's
thing.
episode.
I was a little bit busy yesterday, so I did not. Unfortunately, I did not.
Well,
But
Scott and I were
listen.
talking about one Mr. Devin Booker.
Oh, okay. See, that's a Detroit thing. We keep it
And
all.
the success they've shown without Jaden Ivey means that Jaden Ivey could be included in a trade, and he's a very good young player that other teams like the Phoenix Suns, who are in an impossible position, might want to acquire.
Now that we know they got the draft right, now that we know these players, I mean, think about that, Mo. They didn't just get it right on one player, Mo. They got it right on multiple players in the draft. Now, Troy Weaver, got it right. That's all I can really say about it. He got that right.
Shout
The
out to him.
Pistons, shout out to Troy Weaver. He's nothing you can say. So, ladies and gentlemen, we know one thing. Troy Weaver understands how to draft. Okay, they got that one right. Now, let's see what they're going to do moving forward, because with these young players playing like this, I'm starting to have expectations now.
And a lot of fans in the comments, just last week when we were talking about the Pistons, they said if they met the playoff started today, they'd meet the New York Knicks. A lot of fans think the Pistons would take out the Knicks in the first round.
I don't want to say this, Mo, because I haven't said much, about the Pistons. So I've been here through the good, the bad, and the indifferent. Okay.
Good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah,
That's what we mean to say. Ain't nothing indifferent about what happened last season. There was nothing indifferent about that. The only thing that was indifferent was Monty Williams' attitude to coaching.
Well, Mo, what was indifferent about it? It was on air and off air. I told you I thought this was a good team.
Yeah. Yep.
I always told you that.
You did.
I didn't say like, oh man, we're bad. No, I just, for some reason, whatever was, because there's things that's happening that you can't see. I thought they were a good team last year. Did I think it was going to happen 8 months later? No, I didn't see this. But I did see that they had the potential to be a really good team. And I like their team. And lo and behold, you just never know. But give the Pistons credit. Give them credit for, one, identifying those players. Mo, that's the most difficult thing. And all I can say is, congrats. Because that's a heck of an achievement. Now you have a foundation. So now, Mo, which one of these players are you going to start maintaining? Because, Mo, Cade, okay, I think Cade they've already secured the bag with him, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Osura Thompson. What is there? Just give me something not to like. Just give me something not to like about him.
The only thing would be health risk.
That's
it. And that could be with any player. So
he is a Detroit. When you're in a city, when you draft a player that you can identify with as a city, well, he's it. He could have played on the bad boy teams there. He's so good defensively. He is a phenomenal athlete, and he embodies everything that Detroit loves. So he's got to be a fan favorite. Big Duran just dunks everything. He's a fan favorite. Okay. And they're putting together a team that the city can identify. So they're starting something nice up there. Now all of our fans are going to come out, but some of us, we're here. I'm a Lions fan, so don't tell me I just got on the Lions bandwagon. The Pistons, I'm on. Hey, Mo, I've been here through the
Hey,
bad parts,
enjoy
and
it. Enjoy it.
yeah, we got a chance, Mo. We got a chance now to make a run. They have a foundation, so the next step is identifying which or if all these players we're going to keep, and then you keep building around that. So,
Hmm.
but JB Bickerstaff deserves a tremendous amount of credit, but I do not want to go. I don't want to go and not say this. Troy Weaver drafted all of these players here. That's a fact. And we want to make sure that we acknowledge people when they do good work. And he did. He was, like I said, that was a tough thing to go through, especially with what they went through last year. But give them credit for what they were able to do, what they've accomplished thus far, and we feel very good about our chances now, moving forward. We really do. I mean,
You
I'm not
should.
gonna I'm not gonna
You
talk
should.
trash
You
yet,
should. You
but
should.
what are we on, an 8 game winning streak now? Are
Yep.
we on
That's 8 straight.
and we're feeling pretty good right now.
Hey, no doubt about it. Before we keep the show moving, I want to say one thing. A bunch of you guys have sent me messages and comments about the new look. I'm expanding my setup just a little bit. You may have noticed if you're watching on video, the jerseys behind me. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my boy Sonny from Framing Art UK. If you need your jerseys framed, go to framemyjersey.co.uk because you can see what an amazing job he's done with these. I got the signed Allen Iverson, Jason Tatum. I've got the now collectible edition Doncic Mavericks jersey up there as well. I got a little Zion and then some OGs over there. I got Rip Hamilton, Tim Hardaway Sr. So yeah, framemyjersey.co.uk if you need any of your jerseys, whether it's basketball, football, soccer, as you would call it, BJ, or any type of jerseys. Reach out to those guys. Amazing, amazing team over there. But the reason why I started this episode giving a shout out to Tobias Harris is because devastating news has unfolded in the media space, BJ. Are you ready?
Oh,
Brace yourself for this.
okay.
Paul George has announced that he will be load managing his podcast for the rest of the season. It's hey, Paul George is cool. We got you, bro. Hey, fans of the Paul George podcast, we got you. Come and join the winning team over here. It's all good. He said he plans to take a break from the pod to focus on getting his body right, getting mentally right, and help this squad make a push towards their goal to finish the season out and give themselves a chance to be in contentions to compete for a championship. The Philadelphia 76ers are 12th in the Eastern Conference, 20-38 on a 9-game losing streak. BJ, some of the new listeners don't remember when I used to talk about Paul George on TV. And it ain't nothing personal with Paul George, maybe just a little bit, but am I the only one that thinks this is insane? You're on a 9-game losing streak, 12th in the East, and you're talking about I'm taking a break from the podcast to focus on my day job. Oh.
I don't know why you do this to me, Mo. And Mo, I am not, ladies and gentlemen, gonna fall for this one.
There's nothing to fall
But
for.
if you
Do you know
can
what? Do you know what? You don't need to
if
fall
you
for
can
it.
no, I do need to fall for it because this deserves me to say something. And I'm gonna ask, I have a responsibility, right? I am here, I talk and I have a podcast and I talk and we always talk about real name, no gimmicks. This deserves a real response. And I'm asking our audience to forgive me for not responding. I am trying as best I can to have discipline. Okay. have discipline and not respond to something like this. This is, I don't want to say anything else, but thank you because we have the best audience. And thank you. And you guys, you're only terrific today. The audience is only terrific because there's nowhere else you can get away with not responding. This deserves a response too.
I'll respond.
By the way. Okay. I'll let Mo have it. And I'm gonna let him go for it.
BJ, I know how much you love stats. 2 weeks ago, I saw a stat that was really interesting to me. Since joining the Sixers, Paul George has uploaded 288 podcast clips to YouTube. He's made 197 field goals. He's uploaded more podcast clips than made baskets in the NBA. That to me, first of all, shout out to his team, who obviously Paul George is not editing and uploading. Shout out to the team. I know some of the guys there, they actually do a great job. I'm not criticizing them. I think it's Wave Media. They do a fantastic job with what they're doing. But Mr. Paul George, are you for real? More podcast clips than field goals made. I think now he must have surely made field goals. He had a decent game last night since quitting the podcast. But how has it taken this long for you to realize that, you know what, BJ, you say you're not falling for it, and that's okay. Because the people who needed to fall for it, they already fell for it. Daryl Morey gave this man $212 million guaranteed with the Philadelphia 76ers this offseason. 34 years old. This offseason. What were you thinking? What were you thinking? There was a reason the Clippers didn't want to pay him all that money. Now, if the Clippers, who have built a brand new arena, they need all the star power they can get. They want to sell out that arena. They want to sell their new jerseys, so on and so forth. If they're not willing to pay this guy, who they know, because he's been in their building, if they don't want to pay him, why the hell do you think it's a good idea to pay him? I think Paul George is a good player. Do I think he's a championship player? I don't think so. But he's getting $50 million this year, $52 million next year, $54 million the year after, and then $57 million at the age of 37. And this is a man who's too distracted by his podcast to take his job seriously in the NBA. BJ, I just got to say this for anyone out there who's listening. If there's anyone listening who wants to pay me $50 million to do anything in this world, I won't even think about doing another podcast. I just don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. I had a funny conversation, BJ. I had a funny conversation the other day, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to share this with you guys. I'll share this with our podcast family. I was talking to a girl, and she was talking about something, whatever. And, just in conversation, because I don't view, for me, the year doesn't start in January. My calendar goes along with the NBA calendar. So I refer to things as last season and this season. I don't say like last year. I'm like, last season, I was doing this, and this. And I said that, and she goes to me, hold on a minute. You're saying last season as if you were playing in the game. And I said, whoa. You got to chill out. Because I may as well be playing in the games. Because I'm uploading more podcast clips than Paul George. And I'm pretty sure I could comfortably make less field goals than podcast clips produced. I'm pretty sure I could do that. I may as well be on a roster somewhere. It just made me laugh. Because you're talking like you're on the team. No. I may as well be on the team. Because all the guys on the team, they want to be me now. I'm a full-time podcaster. This is what I do. This is my world. And you telling me that you're quitting podcasting to focus on basketball. This is the most insane thing I've heard. This is the most insane thing I've ever heard. And I was thinking about this. I need to look into it properly, right? But current players having a podcast, when does it go well? With the exception of Draymond Green, he's teammates with Steph Curry and they won that 2022 championship. But with the exception of Draymond Green, I can't think of another team where there's guys on the roster who have a podcast and they improve. Do you get what I'm saying? The Knicks guys, they have a podcast, and we spent last week talking about how they're not in the elite teams in the Eastern Conference. Patrick Beverley had a podcast. Now he's not even playing in the league. Who else has got a podcast? Duncan Robinson started a podcast, then he got moved to the bench. I just don't know. I have this wild theory. BJ. You see this thing that people are paying you hundreds of $1 million to do? Focus on it. Like, it's great. We want to hear from the athletes. It's great. Go on a show as a guest. You don't need to do. I see Paul George upload a video reacting to the trade deadline. Brother, you are in the league. These are like some of your teammates, former teammates you're talking about. Why do we need to hear your reaction? Just for the clicks and the views. How about win some games so you're not in the 12th seed in the East? They're paying you $50 million. I don't know if that's a crazy thought. I love hearing from the players. I think their perspectives are interesting. But if it's affecting you so much that you have to quit podcasting to focus on, and the funniest part is, he says, to give ourselves to be in contention to win a championship. What world are you living in, my brother? What planet are you living on that you're looking at your team and thinking we're going to win a championship? Did I remind you, this is the man who nicknamed himself Playoff P without ever having won anything in the playoffs. A couple of years ago, there was a stat that Paul George had the third most all-time games in the playoffs, shooting 25% or less on 15 or more field goals. And that was that was 4 years ago. So maybe he's even surpassed number one on the list because he was only 2 games behind. But he nicknamed himself Playoff P. Failed in the playoffs. Then he nicknamed himself Podcast P. Failed in the podcast. That's all I got to say.
It doesn't deserve.
How would you have felt if when you were playing, one of your teammates had a podcast? How would that? Because that dynamic's a little bit weird now. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable if one of my teammates was doing a podcast while we're trying to compete for a championship.
This is about the culture that you said for your organization. Listen, it doesn't deserve a comment because some things, you need to say to, you have to say to, people privately. Sometimes you need to address it in the media. Sometimes you need to address it in the locker room. This is one of those private conversations because it's clearly about performance. Now, you have a responsibility here, and I've moved on with the conversation. So this isn't I'm not talking about him, but. And I say him about, Paul George. But when you are in the public's eye, right, Mo, you 4 times a week, you are on television 4 times a week for like 2 hours. How much you don't get better coverage than that. Mm-hmm. 4 times a week, Mo, we are on. It's being streamed. Sometimes it's on national television, but at the very least, you're in front of your audience, your home audience in 2 markets, 4 times a week. Doesn't get better than that. And I was asked this question. I had a speaking thing I had to do yesterday. And one of the things that came up was, what is the difference between the previous generation, which, our generation was about inspiring the next generation. You wanted to have that responsibility. Just like when I was a kid and I saw Dr. J, I was like, wow. Earl Monroe and Walt Frazier and the late Moses Malone, and they inspired me to go out and play as a kid and say, hey, I want to be like that. Then, Mo, you start seeing other players that came up in the 80s, and a couple of these guys are, I have, you know, they inspired the next generation. And then, but the question I asked is that, are we inspiring the next generation, or are we trying to influence the next generation? Think about that, Mo.
Yeah.
I would hope that we continue on our path of inspiring
And
the next generation. But certainly, I hope we would do it on the court.
well, I know
Okay.
you're talking in general, right? But if I take this back
Yes.
to Paul George, there are so many young players now coming in college and overtime or whatever they're doing and coming to the league. And they always get asked, which player do you kind of model your game after? So many of them say Paul George because of the way he's a big athletic wing who can handle the ball, shoot from three. In his prime, he was throwing down crazy dunks. He was inspiring so many people with his play on the court, even if he didn't do it in the big moments in the playoffs, right? My question is, what are you doing the podcasting for? Because it can't be for the money. You're making 50 million a year. It can't be for the money. Is it for the attention? It can't be for the fame because you're already famous. You're already on billboards. You're like doing a podcast, not adding to your fame. So what is it for? Like, I just don't understand why. Because I understand someone like Draymond Green doing his podcast because he already does stuff with TNT. He's angled himself to be prominent in the media, and he's very outspoken, controversial person he felt like his points weren't getting across, and he wanted to have his own lane to do that. But I don't know why Paul George is doing a podcast. I don't know. And there's a whole bunch of other players who have podcasts and whatnot, and I think it's great. I think it is great. My question is why. I like, what I used to like, like Matisse Thybulle and JaVale McGee and O'Shea Brissett more recently. They did YouTube videos, right? But these guys really cared about making videos. As someone whose like career is content creation, these guys really cared about like the camera they were using, the lens, the editing. I'm gonna do this transition for this scene, and I thought that was really cool because that's passion. But a podcast where you get a bunch of your mates sit in front of a camera for a while and just talk for the sake of talking, that's what we do because we're not in the league. You're not in the league anymore. I'm never making it to the league. That's why we do this. And I can assure you this, if I could play in the NBA, I would not be on this podcast mic right now. And if you were still playing in the NBA, I know you wouldn't be on this podcast mic right now. But if you're currently playing in the NBA, why? What's the intention behind it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Honestly, Mo, and today, when you asked me that question just a couple minutes ago, you said, what would it be like to have someone with the podcast? Okay, we had our version of a podcast where guys would do a weekly television show in their local market. It was never a problem. Mo, that's not the problem. You so on one hand, you benefit from the media, and then on the other hand, well, you're doing it, and why are you doing it? Mo, I don't think it's a bad thing to have a podcast. I really don't. I really don't. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't, you said guys have guys have, no one's done it successful except I think you said Draymond. And I started thinking about it and I was like, you're doing a podcast literally after every game. 10 minutes after the game, you're required to talk to the media. What's the difference? What's the difference?
The difference in doing a post game interview and doing your own podcast. A
Mm-hmm.
post game interview, you sit in the locker room, you answer the questions that they give you. Done.
Yes.
A podcast requires planning, organization, significant time commitments.
Okay.
Like
That's
it's a whole different thing to answering questions
oh,
posed to you by a journalist in because I've been the journalist asking them questions
yeah.
and I have a podcast. The difference
So,
is vast in the amount of mental capacity that it has. Now, I don't know what the deal is with the team you have working behind the scenes and the
yeah,
questions, so on and so
that's
forth. But to have a good podcast, it takes a significant amount of time out of your day to do a podcast.
The thing that if I were playing today, is I would really, really research and have the best production team
Yeah.
so that I can show up and be what the media asks you to be. You're the talent. I would have an excellent production where all of those things you said, I don't have to think about. I show up, I do the
Why are you saying I would have? You have.
no, if I were playing today.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
If I were playing today, you have an excellent production because it's a unique insight. It's a
Yeah.
unique and here's why I think Draymond's works. And I don't know this. I remember doing the finals because you and I covered it. His show got off the rails. And the Boston fan base, they were on him pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this is going to go one or two ways. Now, if the Warriors happen to lose this, that's going to be a distraction. But you know what was really cool about, because I think when things happen, I just look how people solve problems. You know what was really cool about this? I think, and I don't know this, so this is just a theory. Because I remember you and I we were there. We covered that series. I think the staffing for the Golden State Warriors, they helped him with this production.
His podcast was owned by the Volume Sports, so I think they had a team there as well. But yeah,
I think the Warriors. Okay, I'll say this. I'll say it another way. I think the Warriors said, "Listen, do your podcasting. However, stay away from certain topics."
Okay, yeah. So the PR stuff more so than
I think
the camera
yes. I
stuff.
think
Yeah.
yes. I think the PR staff said,
Yeah.
and I thought it was really because he actually managed the media through his own podcast.
Yeah.
And I thought that's pretty. I remember thinking, I was like, God, this, if managed correctly with the right production team, you actually can have a relationship that could benefit you and your team because you're ahead of or after the news.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, you could come out, preview your real answer, and say, if you really want to know what I felt about the game, how cool would it be to be able to manage that in a way where everyone is like, well, okay, he's going to do his 10 minutes, but then Mo, I can tease you to get the real answer here. And I thought that was really, really cool because that's what happened. And I was like, this could be a powerful medium. So if a player is listening, you actually could have a powerful voice and use the media and use your requirements to tease everyone to go to get the answer that you want everyone to hear from your space. And everyone would have to tune in because you have a captive audience. And I saw him do that and I thought that's probably the wave of the future. Now, what I don't agree with, if you're just getting on there and you're just talking, because if you're talking, unlike us, we always have topics. We know kind of where we want to go with this. And then once you have that, you can choose to say, well, that probably won't serve us. When I say us, your team will, if I dive into that topic. You know, there used to be a thing where you have bulletin board material. You probably don't want to start commenting about trades and stuff like that. And if you do comment about trades, you better be very clever about it, like our friends are over at TNT, Charles Barkley and these guys. They're very, Charles Barkley is a unique voice. Draymond has navigated this space where now he's a voice while he's playing, which is very hard to do.
And I think,
and that's what I want to say. So if you are going to do it, I think this is opportunity. And I've said this, Mo does a phenomenal job in front of the camera, but he does an incredible job behind the camera.
Appreciate you.
Because that is what makes the show. The production, the producer makes the show. Mo not only is a producer, he also is a reducer because he allows our show to be a real show. He doesn't just produce the show. He allows me and others to have our voice on the show. And that, to me, is what makes any show. It's a team of people that you can't see.
Yeah, shout out to Bart as well, and all the other
Yes.
people who work hard on this.
Yes.
But
Yes.
what I want to say is, I think the other reason why Draymond's worked well is doing anything in the social media, podcasts, whatever public space it is now on this weird internet that we have. It takes a certain mental fortitude, right? Like some players get very affected by what fans say. Some players couldn't care less what fans say. And I think Draymond fits into the latter category. I don't know Paul George like that, but I would assume, based on everything I've seen, he's more than likely to be in the former category. And that's why he's wanted to have the show to be able to get his thoughts out there and whatnot. But like when you do stuff like this and it's in the public eye, BJ doesn't really use social media. He doesn't really know what's going on. So I run it. And you get all these comments. You get hundreds, thousands, millions of comments from people. A lot of those comments aren't nice comments. And it takes a certain mental fortitude to not care and not be affected by what strangers on the internet are writing. And if you don't have that mental makeup, people come to me advice all the time about starting a show or starting a YouTube channel, starting a podcast. If you don't have the mental capacity to not care and not be negatively affected by what people on the internet say, then you should not be in this world. And if you then have to take a break from your podcast to focus on basketball, guess which category you're in. Like, that's just the way I see it. Like, it's great that players have a voice and they have the ability to set their own narratives. But I think it's got to be the certain ones that aren't going to let it become a distraction, because for a show like his, which gets hundreds of thousands of views per episode, it's easy for someone to then get lost scrolling through the comments, caring about what people say about them. And I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, no, I don't know. But what I will say this, okay. But here's an obvious observation. If you are a leading scorer on your team, it's probably very hard to have a podcast.
If you're a what, sorry?
A leading scorer.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do. All right, you can maybe do it for a series or two, but it would be very hard as a scorer, and it would be distracting to your team. Every time you caught the ball, the team, the whole stadium starts booing.
Philly have been booed a bunch of times this year.
Yeah, it's kind of a distraction. All right, you tolerate it one time, two times, and then it goes away. But if you are a player, let's say like Dennis Rodman, that's not a distraction, because Dennis Rodman isn't expected to score. If you're a player like Bill Laimbeer, for instance, he wasn't one of the top, and I'm just using guys from our era. If you were, I don't know, a player that wasn't.
Well, let's do it for like right now, right? If you're look at a team, right? Look at the Boston Celtics, for example. I don't think that Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown have any business doing it. They might want to do it, and it might be great. Fantastic. Shout out to them. But if Luke Cornett and Peyton Pritchard decided they want to start a podcast, I don't think that would really affect anything. Do you see what I'm saying? If Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum wanted to do a podcast, maybe it's slightly different in the way that it goes.
But you got to say you're doing a podcast for what's your reasoning?
Exactly.
I don't think it's bad to do a podcast if you listen. Many of these players, some, not as much, but many of these players go to school and they have their background in media.
Yeah, media and communications, bunch of players.
I don't think it's a bad thing. It's not like, well, the media. No, your intentions of what you're doing. Like Mo, I had a show when I played, but I also went in with the intentions of saying the following. You have what's called sacred space with your team. There's nothing wrong with practicing for your next career. I don't have a problem with the media. It's not like the media is the problem. The problem is, what is your intention with why you're doing it? And if you are here to practice, Mo, in business, believe it or not, there's some things I can share with you and there's some things I can't. There's nice stories to tell that will enhance the team experience. And then there's stories that probably just need to stay in the locker room or on the team bus, or you
Hmm.
do not want to betray the trust of the players or the game. There's nothing wrong with the podcast. I'm not giving any podcast that much credit. Well, the podcast is the problem. No, the problem is do you have the discipline? If you went to college for 4 years for media and communication and you can have an audience, Mo, that seems like the right thing to do.
Hmm.
I did it. Mo, I did it. However, whenever you hear me talk, even to this day, I'll only take you. There's a billion stories I have. Okay. But out of respect to our team, respect to those people, their families, and other things, some of those stories, when we look at each other, you go, man, those guys why are they always smiling when they see each other? Because, Bo, hey, Bo, actually, I was young once and we did fun things. Now I'm a little older, kids, wife. Hey, and I'm playing my position. Okay. Play your position on these podcasts, but respect the game. Respect it.
That's what I'm saying. That's the best
Yeah,
way to say it. That's the
yeah,
best way to say it. Because like
respect
KD
it.
had a podcast, but he would go on his show and he would talk a little bit about basketball, but then he'd talk about like music. Then he'd talk about video games or whatever's going on. Like
Yeah,
that's just his outlet to just talk, right? But
yeah, and well, I think it's good. You know what? I think it's really good. I think what we've learned, if anything, and this is why our show is good. But I got to give you credit, right, Bo? You are the producer of the show. You have to have an excellent staff of people, right? And the reason these things work is because of all the people that you have behind the scenes you can't see. So shout out to our staff because yeah, we come on and da da da, and people come up, and when anytime people give me credit, I always call you.
that's true. That's
I
true.
always I always call you because you know what? The people who you can't see is what makes a great show.
It's facts.
That's how this works. So don't let me, like, for instance, I'm not going to get here and say this is a distraction. No, this is not a distraction for me because I know I am part of a good team. I just happen to be
In
in
front of
front
the
of the
camera.
camera.
Yeah.
But secretly, all the people that you can't see, those are the stars of the show.
Real MVPs.
Yeah, those are the people. It's just like when you watch an NBA game, right? Yeah, you're looking at the players, but look at all of the people that's making that happen. The cameramen, uh, the talent, and
The
there's
showrunners
all
and the
there's
directors and the sound
there,
guys, and there's
yeah,
millions of
there's
people. Like
people,
when we used to
right?
do our TV show, there was 20, 30 people
Free throw.
that you would never see, but they were the most important people. Anyone can sit in front of the camera and talk, right?
Yeah, but Mo, those people. So I would encourage players, look, put together a incredible staff, the best staff you can, to make a show, and have your show with professional producers
But
and
bitch,
work. Because I think it's pretty, Mo, I think it's really cool that I can actually, when you want to hear your favorite player, like for 20 minutes, talk about their thoughts after the game in a podcast setting, I think it has the potential to be an outstanding series, right? I
hmm
do. But it's going to require you to have incredible discipline and production, and more importantly, respect your teammates because you're in sacred spaces, like Mo. What what did the coach say at halftime? Well, he probably used a few choice words that we probably can't say here.
hmm
And that was the turning point. Oh wow. That's pretty good to know that sometimes it gets heated. Think about that. Then you can share stories that can be shared that you can't say after a game, or you begin to learn people's personalities. I think it has the potential to be a really, really thing. cool thing. And I know, Mo, that with the right production, this could be a beautiful opportunity. And I'm gonna tell you this, and this is why this is what I think all the time. You know what I think would be really cool? I think the podcast would be really cool because the podcast, and what this is what I always look at. Who really cares? And I think it would be really cool because everyone is a character, right? You see your character. Everyone is like, whatever. His show is called Podcast P, or his show is called whatever. And it's kind of like a character, right? Like you said, KD's character is, he talks about music and different things. But you know what I think would the podcast would really you would benefit when you see how much these players really care.
Funny enough, we talk about that on an interview I had with Jake Rogel, the director of Court of Gold on Netflix, the new series, and
Yeah.
we were speaking about how much Kevin Durant, that really came across. I don't know if you had a
Yeah,
chance to
yeah,
watch
yeah.
the documentary
I
yet.
didn't watch it, but I watched a clip with Kevin Durant, and
Yeah.
he kind of like he starts to get
And you see the
emotional about
passion.
it.
And you know what? I recorded that interview for you guys, and that will be out tomorrow or on Saturday.
Yeah,
I'll be able to share that with you.
so this is where I think the podcast, and Mo, and I'll say this about myself. You know why I do this show every day, Mo? It's because I really, really care about this game.
Facts.
It's not about money. It's not about winning. It's not about losing. It's not about, Mo, when you love something. Mo, I'm going to watch basketball for the remainder of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to watch it every day. Mo, I had to go to some meetings yesterday. And when I got home, because I was gone all day, and when I got home, Mo, my son was watching the Utah Jazz versus the Sacramento Kings game.
No, he down bad.
So I asked him, I said, "Hey, what's the score of the game?" And he immediately gave me the score. And he said, "Hey, Dad, I knew you weren't here and I wanted to watch it because I knew you were coming home." And I thought, that's my guy. That's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is what I do. I love the game. My family knows I love the game. My wife, I love, but she knows I love the game. She know I can't help it. Mo, I just can't. I do this podcast every day with you because you love the game. Our audience tunes in because they love the game. And we all respect this game. I think the podcast has an incredible amount of discipline with the right production because, Mo, I get a chance to see these players every year, as a former player, as an executive, as an agent, and all those things, Mo. You get to see the human side of them. And where we love to cover trade deadlines and free agency, I have a soft spot for those times of the year because I know they're the people behind them and I know they're all putting on their brave face. Oh, yeah, the trade is fine. I'm looking forward to it. But Mo, secretly, no one wants to move their family, take their kids out of school. Now you got to go buy a new house or rent a new house or whatever it is you got to do because there's a human component to this, Mo, and you see people emotionally, Mo, especially when you are in a situation that it works for you or your family loves it there. And all of a sudden you got to uproot your family and move on. So I think the podcast has way more potential than what it's being utilized. And I don't think we've just hit the perfect spot yet. But because Mo, these players really care. And I know everyone's putting on their, you know how it is, Mo. Everyone's putting on their tough face.
Yeah.
But secretly, Mo, some days we come in and go, oh man, and what are we going to talk about today? But Mo, it makes us a little sad when we don't have things to talk about because what we're really saying,
I'll tell you what though.
we love this. We love the game.
We're almost on episode number 700. There's always something to talk about.
Yeah,
There's
but
always something to talk about.
and I will say this, I have to remind myself how hard it is, Mo, to really get on that treadmill every single day and just, and crank out 30 minutes on the treadmill. You never want to forget how hard that really is. And I have to remind myself, that's why I don't ever try to go in to criticize the players to that degree, because Mo, it's hard to play in the NBA. It's hard. It's hard to do it. It's hard to play. It's hard to
Yeah.
get up and go to work every day. It's hard. It's hard to be a parent. It's hard to be a partner. It's hard. Like you got to work at this. And I give these players. I always try to take the side of the players. That's why that thing. If it's something I want to accomplish, is to get rid of this old school, new school stuff. Because Mo, there's really no old school or new school. It just is what it is.
Respect
it's
the
hard.
game. That's
you
just
want to
it.
respect it, and you want to make sure you want to see. I want to see these young players do better than the previous generation. You know why, Mo? Because that means there was some level of relationship. It's kind of like, you don't have children, but you know what, Mo? You know what's really cool is when you see your kids do better than you. I can't think of a better feeling. Like I can't think of a better, like, to see my kids travel. And I was like, man, when I was that age, I never dreamed of going to Tokyo. Now my kids are like they're talking to me about like things. I was like, when I was your age, I didn't even, my youngest, he's like, oh yeah, Paris is great, Dad. I love it. I'm like, you're 9. Like, who talks this way? You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I like sometimes I hear these kids. He's like, "Oh yeah, Dad." Oh, he'll be playing a video game. He'll be like, "Oh, Dad, yeah, I saw this," and I'm like, "Yeah, you did." But I can't think of anything better for me to see a player and say, "Wow, that player could be the greatest player."
Facts.
That I can't think of it, and here's why. Like, Mo, there's nothing better than to have the respect of your peers. Well, Mo, this is a very, very exclusive club called the NBA, right? Not a lot of people can say they did it. Why wouldn't we want to see a player that we can all say, wow, regardless of what generation you played in?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Mo, how cool would that be, Mo, when you see a player that cares about the game that much and the respect of everyone who's ever played with it and carry that responsibility? It's not about like being criticized. It's about, if there's anything, Mo, I want to see, if there's anything I want to see in my lifetime, is I want to see someone go for it. I want to see someone go for it and say, I'm committed to the game, and go for it. And Mo, go for it. Not worry about what people are saying on the outside, but Mo, go for it. Like,
Yeah.
really, that to me, Mo, is one of the reasons I do this. Because Mo, when you talk to these older guys, Mo, they know. Everyone knows how hard this is. But I want to see one of these players in the future go for that.
We're gonna have to wrap this episode up before we start talking about Victor Wembanyama. So that's been another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast.
No, Mo. Just because you have the talent, don't mean that you have the mentality.
I think he
Remember
does have the mentality. That's
Mo. Having the mentality and executing is two different things. Now that's another show. Okay. Remember, Mo, we've seen bigs that came in this league and dominated. Wilt Chamberlain being one. Wilt Chamberlain, remember, Mo, we've seen something that we will never see again. Play every minute of every game plus overtime for a full season. In Converse cons, low tops. We're not going to see that again.
no.
Okay. Just because you have stats, no. You could be defensive. Mo, I want to see someone dominate the entire game. Now that it's going to take a very rare talent to do, especially in today's game. And the reason I say that, and Victor is there's going to have to, if Victor is to be able to put himself in that conversation, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to have to stop shooting about 10 threes a night. That's, if we're going to call it what it is, we got to call it what it is. He's shooting about 8 to 9 or 10 threes a night. And the reason I say that, Mo, is because when you have a switch, what is his advantage? It's not to shoot. If I switch on him and he shoots a three, that's a win for me or a player of my size. So he's going to have to change his preparation for the game. It's not a criticism. That's just what it is. Now, this is a learning curve. So if you can reduce that to all of a sudden 2 or 3s or whatever the case may be, because when you switch, I'll take Porzingis, for instance. When he started going to the mid post to post up players instead of shooting threes when we switch.
In the finals against Dallas.
Mo, that was a big adjustment for him.
You got to have the versatility. I don't think the ability to shoot threes is a bad thing. I think it's situational in the right situation. But I will just mash up my computer the next time I watch a game and he gets a point guard switched onto him and he doesn't get to the basket.
That's Mo. That's Mo. That's what you love about Jokic. Jokic can shoot threes, but he doesn't settle for the three. You can't play small ball against him. That's his advantage in the NBA. You cannot play against him with small people. Now, Victor is taller than Jokic. So allow your advantage to maintain your advantage. This isn't a criticism. This is, okay, if you're going to be the greatest, you have to constantly adjust so that you're constantly executing or constantly playing to your strengths. And he will get there. I believe he'll get there. But right now, I can switch with him with the point guard and he can't overpower me like Jokic right now. That's not a criticism. That's just an adjustment that that everybody has to make. We all came in and had to figure out how to do that. So I think it would be really cool for all of these great players, great talents, to go for it and block out the noise. Like, block out the noise because we want to see it. Mo, you know how much I really like Victor Wembanyama, and I'm trying not to go because I want to. This is why I was trying to wrap up the show.
We've been on here for like an hour and 20 minutes now.
Yeah, but I would love to see him make that adjustment because I thought it was really cool when Porzingis made it.
Yep,
I thought it was really
won in that game.
I thought it was really like, think about that, Mo. Think how long it took him to get to that position.
Yep.
It took him hundreds of games.
It was also finding out his edge. Like, Porzingis has never been a back to the basket, back down guy, but he figured if he can get to the elbow and shoot those middies over the defender, it's a higher percentage shot than, a three that's 4 steps behind the 3-point line or backing down someone on the post. So that's another episode of the Hoop G's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow and we'll answer some of your questions tomorrow. Get your questions into the Discord.
Yes.
We'll answer your questions tomorrow. We've not done that in a while. I think that we need to do that. But subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Welcome to all the listeners of Podcast P who now no longer have a podcast to listen to. Glad you're rocking with us.
Did you really say that? Yes.
Hell yeah. I told you before what it is, and it is what it is. Shout out to Paul George. Until next time, unlike the Philadelphia 76ers, get buckets.